Is it safe to assume that last night lived up to the hype? I mean, look, putting aside like, hey, I'm disappointed the United States lost. It feels like this game had an immense amount of hype on it, and it delivered.
And it had an immense amount of hype because of what they did in the first time they played.
For sure.
Like, that game was so amazing. I know we were texting back and forth during that game. That game was so amazing that it set up for, are we going to get 2.0 of that?
Yeah.
And you got the same physicality. You got the same speed of the game. You got those things without as much of the chippiness to start, obviously. But there was still chippiness throughout the game that was really great part of it. I thought, Kevin, while I was watching it, I think somewhere in the third period, I was watching these guys fly around on the ice, and I was like, this is the highest level hockey I think I've ever seen.
Yep.
This is the best. They're flying, for one. Once one offense makes a move this way, they're turning back around and going the other way as fast as they can because that's how Canada plays.
Yeah, they're amazing.
And all of a, and you're like, and if in most cases on NHL nights, you're like, oh, that team just got destroyed. Well, because they're so good, they're able to catch up. Like, that was the great part of it was a very delicate window that they were able to make goals happen here, and it was awesome to watch.
And I want to shout out Alec, and then I want to get your thoughts about the hype level and how you took this game in and everything. But I want to shout out some of the specific individual defending moments because you had Slavin who stopped what looks like it would have been a wide open net goal. Eichel,
which one? The one where he like his skate or stick?
No,
did
that
it?
was so.
Or
that
the
was
one where he laid on the ground and had one of the coolest saves I've seen.
That was the stick. Eichel right after that had no stick and he stopped it with the skate, which I thought was incredible. Man, the last 12 to 18 months have really been like the match of the hype behind Jack Eichel because you know for a while, like obviously he moved teams and everything, but it was a struggle, man. You have seen him really announce himself. And then, as much as I hate to say this, overtime was the best that Team USA had played all night. And you had Binnington in the span of, it was like 40 seconds. He had the overtime stop on Matthews, and then Kachuk a minute later, and then Matthews again on the ensuing faceoff. Those were three, like Corey, you were talking about the delicate intricacies of setting up these scoring chances. There are three scoring chances back to back to back. And I think Jordan Binnington, he gets crapped on, and they're already looking for a way to replace him for the Olympics next year. But that trio of stops right there, this game was so close to being over the other way.
It was Slavin about 8 minutes left in the third period that laid down on the ice and stopped one that looked like it was a wide open slap shot.
Unbelievable.
And that was the moment that I thought to myself, I was like, oh, the U.S. is going to win. He just put his body on the line for it. And this is because, honestly, how many times do you hear coaches in the playoffs saying, we got to drop down on pucks. We got to get in front of them. We got to, and they're not doing it. And we applaud the Stars whenever we see 3 or 4 different dudes doing that. To see one guy in a not professional game, in a game that is an international game, do that was special to me. And I was like, America's winning this one. Unfortunately, overtime happened, and the best player on the ice got the goal because
that's tough to argue.
Everyone, like I saw a video while I was laying in bed, Kevin. I was watching a video, and all the players were asked who they would pick to be on their team, and they were like, all of them were saying McDavid. Everybody had somebody different, but like I think Jake Ottinger said Esa Lindell. He was like, he's the best defender out there. But they all said, I think we're being dumb by not saying if we don't say McDavid. And, yeah, that's just what he does. Alec,
I've seen you shaking your head a lot positively in this segment. Safe to assume that this game had what you wanted. What hockey needed is what I want to say. Because I want to get to you specifically, but, like, hockey needed this to be a big-time event, too, because of how many new fans might have been converted in the last 8 to 10 days. Is so many people. It's kind of the funny thing where you find experts automatically, and there's all these people that are now like, oh well, this needs to happen.
It had the same
you
effect
didn't
as
even know what Four Nations was.
It was the same effect as the World Baseball Classic a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I liked watching Twitter throughout the night, just seeing how many people are like, don't have any clue what is happening right now, but I'm so into this. And I'm hoping there's a residual effect of some people. Maybe they do see Connor McDavid with the game winner, and they're like, I want to watch that guy more. Like
Yeah.
I've heard everybody on the national telecast saying, this guy, he's legit. He's the best player in hockey right now. I need to watch this guy. And I like how that was like the final question of his post-game interview was, what's your message to maybe the people who aren't fans of hockey that are watching right now? And he was like, we have a beautiful game, man.
Yeah.
Like, we really do. And I hope you guys were entertained because this is some of the best hockey that I've been a part of. So, I'm hoping that some people realize that the best player on the planet is saying that. It's probably got some truth to it.
Was it McKinnon who said, man, I really suck tonight?
Yes.
And, okay.
That was so good, too.
That was. He was like, I was not good tonight. And you're like, oh, well, your team won. That's good, right? And he's like, yeah, but not because of me.
And it's one of the last gladiator sports, too, that we talk about whenever you're talking about real, battles like this. Jonathan Cox texted in and said, Canada did have the best two players in the league with McDavid and McKinnon. Kevin, I think that if we don't include Sidney Crosby in the conversation of like not just one of the best players in the league, but one of the best players to touch ice. Like that dude, it seems like every team he's on, you stand a chance of being in important games, no matter if it's international or just a friendly. If you're on his team, you're going to be in that mix.
I mean, think about at a time when like best on best international hockey, you haven't had the opportunity to really see it a lot. Sid the Kid can roll in there. Well, I guess not so much the Kid anymore. He can roll in there and say, yeah, I was captain for the team that won it all in the Four Nations tournament that really seems to have like jump-started again some interest in hockey. And I was also the captain on the Olympic team in, was it 2010, I believe, and scored the golden goal in overtime to give us the gold medal. Oh, not to mention 3-time Stanley Cup champion and 2-time playoff MVP, just if you wanted to add that in there. He's an incredible player who he just seems to be around winning.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And he knows what it's about. And he might not be the one that's scoring all the goals, but go look at how many times he was setting up goals throughout this run. Kevin, the U.S. has won the last 2 World Major Junior Championships.
Hell yeah.
And Canada didn't make the finals last year. So the future with like Quinn Hughes, Cole Caulfield, Lane Hudson, even Jason Robertson wasn't on this team. Just think about who wasn't on this team that still has a future on it.
Quinn Hughes is a great example because Quinn Hughes is the guy who they were going to bring up to the team, and they found out through minutia of the rules and stuff like that they couldn't actually put him on the team.
Oh, they couldn't Mark Stone cheat it?
Yes. They could not circumvent the CAF in that way with Quinn Hughes. So he was not going to be able to jump on immediately. But that's a kid who's a stud. Eric Chiafalo, I know he did a whole segment on it yesterday and was talking about it. And they mention it on the broadcast. So many of these players have played together for the United States for a really long time. You know how in basketball we talk about how like the only reason the United States would lose in some of these competitions is that all these other teams have played together so long. It's weird because that's kind of like Canada, where like we're one of the scrappy underdog teams that has a better shot because we've played together for so long. Like, obviously, the Kachucks come to mind. They've played together their entire life.
Got a ton of respect for the Kachucks, dude, after this run.
I'm telling you.
And Austin Matthews.
I don't think any 3 American players have upped their standing in the world more than the Kachucks and Austin Matthews right there. And, I'm kind of curious. I know you won't find this out today. Is there going to be any lingering positive or negative effect for any of these people? Specifically, Hellebuck looked like someone had just shot his dog after he gave up that goal. And that team has been on a freaking roll. I'm kind of curious if that will have any carryover into the actual rest of the season.
We've talked to players that have been at the World Series, been in, big time playoff games, and finding that rush in the regular season is always hard, especially after you just did that. So I think these guys love their sport and they understand it so much. I don't think there will be, but you got a good question there.